One thing that everybody has been wanting to see happen for a long time and finally has been happening over the past year or two is the rent prices coming down. Because for too long now, the rent has been too damn high. And it's really starting to happen in a meaningful way because there has been a huge wave of newly built multifamily units that are still being delivered to the market right now. And this new supply is hitting the market at the same exact time that demand is weakening for all types of real estate because more young folks are living with their parents because the cost of living is too high. They can't find a good job these days with the horrible job market. And so it's just like the perfect storm of all this stuff coming together at once. And the result is higher vacancies and falling rent prices. On a national level, rents are dropping. The median U.S. apartment rent fell 1% in November and now averages $1,367 a month. And this now marks 4 consecutive months in a row of rent declines, and rents are now down 5.2% from the peak rent levels back in 2022. And you got to understand that since 2022, we have had a massive amount of inflation, guys. We have talked about this to death on this channel of how much the cost of living has gone up. And a lot of people will, scoff at that and say, oh, 5.2% is nothing, Michael, compared to how much it went up. But consider inflation, guys. Consider the fact that inflation has pushed everything up tremendously. And when we've had as much inflation as we've had over the past 4 years, that 5.2% decline is actually a lot larger than you think, because when you see prices drop in a high inflation environment, it works both ways, guys. So that drop is actually much more significant because everything else is going up in price. So something that's going down right now relative to how much inflation we've had, it's probably more like a 10 or 15% drop in rent. So before you sit there and say that 5.2% is not enough, would you rather have it go in the other direction? Would you rather see the rent prices going up? Or would you rather see it going down and have that downward pressure on rent work in your favor when you adjust for inflation? And all the real estate experts, all the real estate economists were saying that 2025 was going to be the year that the housing market was going to come roaring back to life, both with sales and rent prices. And man, were they wrong. The problem is demand for all types of housing, both rent and sale, has collapsed this year. And now on a national level, multifamily vacancies sit at a 7.2%, which is a record high for empty rentals. We've never seen this many empty rentals ever, not even going back to 2008. In fact, I would argue that back in 2008, as somebody who was doing real estate back then, the demand for rentals was very high back then, guys, because nobody wanted to touch real estate in terms of buying. Everybody was worried about, losing their money if you could afford to buy or you could qualify. And oftentimes it was quite a bit cheaper to be a renter than to buy, even as prices were coming down. So the demand for rent was actually pretty high back between 2008 and 2012, whereas now this time really is different because both sides of the housing market are seeing suppressed demand. CoStar, which is a big property management firm, they reported the largest monthly rent declines in 15 years since they've been keeping track. And the main reason they say this is happening is because younger adults cannot afford to form new households. And that's something that we've been talking about a lot here on the channel. You have 32.5% of 18 to 34-year-olds living at home, which is the highest level in years. And obviously it's because the rent prices as well as the price to buy a home has gone up way too much. The job market is non-existent right now. And overall, there's an affordability crisis in general with just the cost of living. Like I made that video the other day, guys, it's not just housing anymore, it's everything. Housing is just one piece of the unaffordability puzzle now. And everybody kept pushing, oh, you should invest in REITs, because REITs are a great way to invest in real estate without having too much personal risk or exposure. And a REIT stands for a real estate investment trust, where basically, you have an investment fund that pools together a bunch of money and they buy investment properties, and that return that they get is paid out to you in the form of a dividend when you own the REIT. Well, guess what? Major REITs this year are all down. Avalon Bay, Equity Residential, and Camden Property Trust are all down year to date because these companies can't make money anymore like they used to be able to. In an environment where property taxes and insurance and other carrying costs for any type of real estate have risen as fast as they have, it's almost impossible to keep up with those costs and continue charging the rent necessary to make a decent profit. Guys, this is a problem that landlords across the board, all over the country, both residential and commercial, are facing. And some cities are actually seeing some very significant rent declines due to the poor economy. Like Las Vegas is the perfect example. Las Vegas is seeing lower tourism, a weaker job market, and weaker rent demand all at once. And, look at it from the people who live there, their point of view. How can you continue to pay sky-high rents if you're only making a fraction of what you were making before because the entire city relies on tourism dollars, If you're a waitress working on tips or a stripper working on tips or whatever else you do out there in Vegas, well, that's a problem now, isn't it? Boston, Massachusetts is seeing a similar thing play out. They have fewer foreign students coming in due to the tight immigration laws we have now. And they're seeing reduced federal biotech funding, maybe one small sliver of the federal government cutting back on spending, but it is having an effect on the city. Austin, Texas is seeing the biggest rent corrections due to a huge supply glut of multifamily properties hitting the market over there. And people have been voting with their feet, so to speak, when it comes to rent prices, guys. Some of the most popular searched rental markets by people trying to find more affordable housing are looking in places like Cincinnati, Ohio, Atlanta, Georgia, Kansas City, Missouri, Washington, D.C. In fact, the Midwest is now 11 of the top 30 highest renter demand cities in the country. So people are waking up and realizing that, hey, I need to live somewhere where my finances are going to be more stable. I can't afford these massive swings in cost of living. I just can't keep up with it. And it's very stressful, and no one needs that. And I can personally vouch for somebody who grew up in the Midwest, guys. Like, even today, almost 20 years since I left, it's still a pretty affordable place to live, just like it was when I grew up there, relative to the rest of the country. Have things gone up? Absolutely. In fact, home prices are still going up over there, but relative to people's incomes, people can still afford it. And that's why the prices continue to go up, along with a big inventory shortage they still have there. And even though multifamily builds are starting to slow down now, the sheer volume that's been built over the past several years is continuously being completed and continuously being delivered to the market. And this is good news whether you're a buyer or a renter, because the more inventory that's available in general, whether it's for sale or for rent, it helps you with downward price pressure, because the more choices that people have, the more competitive sellers and landlords need to be in order to have you live in their place or sell their place to you. And the thing is, the strongest rental base in the country has always been the young professionals, young college graduates or young people starting to form a family that are, entering the workforce or whatever. Those are the people that have always been the strongest demographics for renters. And since more of those people than ever are living at home right now, this is going to have a severe impact on the market. And this is all great. This is economics playing out the way that it should. Unless the government gets involved and tries to find ways to subsidize more of this stuff and put everybody on Section 8 rent, this is going to have a big impact on downward rental prices. And don't forget, guys, if you need a real estate agent, whether you're a buyer or a seller anywhere in the United States, I can set you up with a real estate agent 100% free. All you got to do is use the link down in the description below, fill out a short form, and one of my real estate partners will reach out to you ASAP. And it is 100% free. And if you use it, it not only helps you, but it helps the channel, and I appreciate it. Now, sellers or landlords are getting a huge reality check right now if they refuse to lower their prices, because the longer your price is wrong,